What the?
Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got the feeling that something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall out my chair.
Start right about now. Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Geeky Gentlemen, where today we feature a very special guest, Captain Logan, and our topic will of course be torturing him for destroying our hopes and dreams. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Yes,
I've been
planned. I've planned for this for months. I've got the spatula, I got the spoon. Oh, and Zazubar got the turkey stuffing. Let's get this thing over. Let's start. Oh golly.
Cap, do you have anything to say about the proceeding of this video? What? Did anyone get that?
No.
Yeah,
No?
I did. Captain Logan, you've got a dirty mouth. How dare you?
Maybe.
My mother was a saint.
Maybe so everyone, like us and the listeners, can understand. Maybe, you know, since this is audio, we shouldn't have gagged Captain Logan.
Yeah, we should have thought about that beforehand.
Yeah, my bad. Alright, Milan, take the gag off.
All right then.
Okay. Captain Logan, anything to say about the, you know, special guest star of the torture episode of Geeky Gentlemen?
Was that really necessary? I mean, I realize that we voted all of you off of who reviews the reviewers, but none of you were last.
That made it
I don't know.
even worse.
If we were, why did you lead us on? Why did you feed us? Why did you poison us with hope?
What I love is how I'm one of 4 of 5 judges, but I'm the only one that got kidnapped.
They're next!
No.
Yeah,
my
well,
friend,
no, see,
my
actually,
friend.
that is true.
Mr. Fusion, he's actually in my cupboard right now. So he's in Australia, but you know, don't worry about it.
Why is Fusion in your cupboard? He lit Zaz on.
Yeah, I know! He should be in my cupboard!
No, but he showed me kindness. He was my.
Hold on, he lit me on fire!
Fire!
Well, yeah, but you know, but the thing is, he just lit you on fire. He was nice to me.
No biggie.
He was well. You're Godzilla, goddammit. He was nice to me, and then he spat at me, and he broke my heart, and for this he shall pay.
Okay.
I just
Anyway,
feel the need to point out the fact that you guys have recently had Vince on your show, and you didn't do that to Vince.
Well,
Vince was kind to everybody here.
Yes, Vince.
My rage is just directed at. I only have enough rage to direct at one person, and I've just chosen you.
Oh well, at least now you're telling the truth.
Yeah, right. Anyway, all right. So let's. This is going on for far too long. Hi, new viewers who have no idea what's happening. Anyway,
We don't
so
kidnap
back.
people, usually.
Yeah, that's the usual format for the show. So back, how this show started was Milan, Zazubar, and myself were all on the show who reviews the reviewers. It was a reality-style contest hosted by our very special guest today, Captain Logan. Say hi, Cap.
Hi. Hi, Ian.
Hi! Oh, by the way, I'm recording, just so you know. Anyway, no, so that we all met through that show, and we did, you know, some funny, instead of like doing the classic reality show of, oh, I hate to leave, but blah blah blah. We decided to, you know, like actually do what most people like think reality show contestants that get voted off are thinking, which is to, you know, I want revenge or I want to get back. But we made a parody of that, and you know, just it gave me a chance.
I got set on fire, just saying.
I held a lightsaber and rode a dragon. It was pretty awesome for me.
I got lit on fire.
And I kidnapped somebody. Well,
yeah, anyway.
We all kidnapped somebody, Milan.
Yeah, well, I did it first.
Okay. Milan's like the hipster of kidnapping. Anyway, no, but it's just so like we've been doing Geeky Gentlemen for 6-7 months now, guys.
Oh shit.
Since late July, we've been doing.
Yeah, and it seemed like I'd been wanting to bring Captain Logan on, and I think it's like a really I've always found Geekvolution much more of a community than just a YouTube channel. And so I really felt like Geeky Gentleman is derived from Geekvolution. I really wanted to have you on, and, I loved having Vince on too, but I was just waiting for the right topic for you, and I feel like our topic today really does fit. And today, everybody, we're going to be talking about the death of the author. For those that don't know what that is, because, yes, it is essentially a poetic term for the topic, it's when an author writes something, the idea that once they've written it, they have no control over it. What their intentions were with it doesn't matter. What their life was about doesn't matter, because they might as well be dead, since now it's in the hands of the reader and open to interpretation. And we're not talking about just books. We're going to talk about film, anything fictional, and some things that aren't fictional, possibly.
Anything narrative, basically.
Not necessarily. I'll get into that a little bit later. But
anything that's created, I guess.
Yeah. Before we get into that, get into the actual topic, there's one thing I wanted to announce, and sorry that I know we're bogging down the beginning of this video with a lot of just random stuff that's not related to the topic, but frankly, I'm a lady of the evening, and since Cap's on, this is going to be a more popular viewer, this is going to be a more popular video, so I'm going to advertise this. There's a segment I've been wanting to do called Skype-ins, where we're going to announce our topic for next week at the end of this video, and we do that pretty much every video. And what we want people to do is, if they have interest in this topic, what they can do is, record a 1 to 2 minute segment of them saying things. I was wondering what you guys thought about this, what about that, yada yada, and send it to me either on Skype, add me as SidPart2 on Skype, or send me a download link through YouTube, and we'll play your clip on the show.
And if you're the first...
Hold on, and we'll respond to it directly. And now, Milan?
And if you're the very first person to give us a Skype in, guess what? I will draw you in any sick, twisted position you like. The specifications are all yours.
Now then, that covering all our bases, and knowing God knows how long we're into this video, but anyway, death of the author, let's just start real quick. Yes or no, Milan, that means you yes or no. Do you think that the author is dead? Let's start. I'll start. I'm going to say yes. And
I'm going to say I have a more nuanced opinion. See, if a work is...
Yes or no?
No, I think the author is still alive.
Zazubar.
No.
Captain Logan.
Yes.
The author is dead to you, or is the author still alive? I'm sorry. I've confused my own question now.
It was a simple yes or no question.
Yes, but I forgot what yes was an answer to.
Yes, you think the author is dead, and then we said no, we don't think the author is dead.
Okay. That makes sense. So actually...
The English language, Ian, we're reading an article about it.
Well, no, I got confused because I was yelling at Milan. No, it's just,
That tends to happen a lot.
I can sympathize, Ian, I can sympathize.
Well, no, actually, I gotta ask Cap right off the bat, as an author, that's surprising to me.
Oh, really? Why is it surprising?
Well, I mean, I don't meet many authors like myself that consider themselves irrelevant after the work is out.
Well, you asked for a yes or no answer. I think it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, but I'm just...
Yeah, Ian!
Yeah, just wanted yes or no for a quick generalization, but I'm really interested in your opinion. I could have sworn I could have pegged you as a no.
No, absolutely not. And the reason I felt the need to answer that way is because I've always believed, and I say this a lot in reviews, that works need to stand on their own. It's unfair to expect people to, know the person who wrote the thing. So if it doesn't stand on its own, if you need the author to come in and explain it to you, then there's a flaw in the work.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And that necessitated a yes answer.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, definitely. My stance on yes isn't quite the same, but actually now we have a really interesting debate because we have 2 yeses and 2 nos. So, Milan, you had something else to say. So go ahead now. What was your nuanced opinion that you wanted to express?
You see, if a work is popular enough, and if it's becomes a populist phenomenon, then I suppose yes, you can say that the author is dead, and the fan base of the work has just grown bigger than the author itself, and bigger than what the author intended it to be. Like Star Wars, for example. Star Wars was
Don't tell George Lucas that.
Well, let me say. Well, basically, Star Wars started up as like this fun, 70s, samurai-inspired Pulp Fiction, Buck Rogers type of a thing, and it was fun. Everybody liked it. It was, visionary, fun at the time, and then it just took off, and then George Lucas came on. Of course, there were books and comics and just other different types of media, apparently, quote-unquote, set in the Star Wars universe with video games and what have you. And it became huge. It exploded. And then George Lucas came along and tried to get the reins of his own works back. And he tried it with, the trilogy, the new one. And he couldn't grab onto it anymore. It wasn't his anymore. It grew bigger than he was. It got bigger than he was. And the stuff that he made, it did not live up to any sort of expectations that the fans had, because it grew bigger off than him. And actually, it's really interesting to find that I don't know if you guys seen the Cartoon Network Clone Wars cartoon, both the 3D one and the 2D one. I mean, it's interesting that it's interesting. Well, they're amazing, and it's really interesting to see that, like cartoon makers and TV show creators, like for cartoons, have done better job at making Star Wars, quote unquote, storylines and films and characters than the guy who created it in the new trilogy. It's really fascinating to me that he has no longer got a hold of his own work.
Okay, but why do you say no? Because you're kind of hanging us all with
Well, here's the thing. I'm with Milan.
But if the work is not populist, if the work is kind of like an underground type of a thing, and it's not really out in the mainstream, and it's not really seen all that much, and it's not really talked about all that much, the work on itself, it still kind of belongs to the author, because the populist hasn't embraced it and made it their own.
Okay, interesting. Bill, how about you?
Yeah, here's the thing. I say no. Let me just say this. I agree with both Milan and I agree with Cap. Because I think that a lot of works, not all, because they transcend time in that once the original author actually physically does die, Batman lives on, Superman lives on, Godzilla lives on, all these fictional characters live on.
I knew he was going to throw it in there.
Yeah, I had to. They all live on past the original author's deaths. Now, that being said, I still think I said no because you can never recapture that exact intent of the original author. And that's the sense I was getting from this piece, was that you basically could. And I don't agree with that, because I think that everyone has their own way of looking at the world, and then they bring that into their writing. And I feel like that once the piece is out there, the author is not dead, because if they want to continue that, they want to continue writing those kinds of stories. People want to analyze the stories. That their viewpoint that led to the story is still important, that they're not dead. But at the same time, I do agree with Cap that a story should stand on its own, a work should stand on its own. But I do think at the same time that when you find out background about an author, it adds another layer on top of what the work itself is presenting. So I don't think the author can ever really die. I think their power can diminish. Like, I think that, to use Batman as an example, I think Batman has transcended Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Just absolutely.
Definitely.
So
yeah, but then you're saying that the original creator is basically the spark of creation, and everybody else who goes along it is just another road stop for the character.
Right. Their viewpoints, the way they look at the world has come in and done things to Batman's universe. But you can never quite get the exact viewpoint that Bob Kane and Bill Finger had. So okay. I don't think the author can ever really die. I just think their power can diminish.
See, for me, I say yes because I think ultimately there's more toward this. There's more to support that the author's dead than there is for me to support that they're still relevant. But that being said, I do think yes, what their original intent or what's in their biography can add layers to it. But I think that's ultimately, I think that's in comparison to how much more there is to interpretation by the reader, by the consumer. I don't know. I don't like that word. What's a good word for this? Cap, you're an English major. By the person who reads or sees or listens to or
The observer.
Yeah, I mean,
the observer.
It just depends on the medium. So I mean, if you're talking about a book, then it's the reader. If you're talking about a film, it's the viewer. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like that. All right. I mean, we've all had that moment where you're listening to a song on the radio, and because of whatever's going through your life right now, you're listening to the lyrics. You've heard this song a billion times, but for some reason, now the lyrics seem to be perfectly describing your situation in life, and you've never felt any personal relevance to them before until this moment. I'm sure everyone's had that feeling. Most people associate it with a breakup, but there are certainly other situations to which this applies. And I feel like that's why the author's dead, because that's not just with music. That's with films. That's with, books. There are things you read and you go, oh my god, this applies perfectly to this situation in my life, this thing that I know about, or this event that's going on with my friend. It's a perfect parallel to them. And, of course, the author didn't intend that, because guess what? The author didn't know you. And I find that interesting. And you can even go back and look at the author intended this, and their biography suggests this, which can completely contradict the way you feel, but it doesn't change the fact that you still feel this way inspired by their work.
But here's the thing. Again, everyone has their own different way of looking at the world. So yes, each reader is going to interpret a story, or each viewer is going to interpret a movie differently. But at the end of the day, without that original conceiver, you wouldn't have that movie. So I still don't...
But that's the thing, that's the quote. The birth of the reader must come at the cost of the death of the author. Like, that's the thing. It's not that the author is dead before he writes it. The author has to live in order to write it. But once the work is created, the author might as well be dead, because now it's completely up to interpretation, is the argument.
I think that the very notion of the author is dead, just using that phrasing of it is interesting because it automatically has a negative connotation. And being somebody who creates things and likes to show it to people, that's a phenomenon that I have a great appreciation for. I in a sense, I want as the author to be dead. And the reason is because...
Oh, so you're not like John Green. Okay.
Well, I like to hand my work off to someone and see and see how they take it, to see how they interpret it, to see if what I thought they would take from it is in fact what they take from it. When I was doing a lot of workshopping in college, we were never allowed to. I mean, any of the classes I took with any professor, if we had a piece that was workshopped, we were never allowed to explain our work. We were never allowed to talk in the middle of those deliberations. We had to wait till the end, and then maybe we could ask questions, but we weren't able to say, no, this is what I really meant. And the reason, again, is because, of course, that piece is supposed to stand on its own. The beauty of artistic language, the beauty of fiction and poetry, is that once you've written it down and you give it to someone, it's out there, and you get to see if what you intended actually comes out on the page. And by seeing if that is the case, that's partly how we improve. And what's also really interesting about it is that sometimes somebody will take something from it that really is there, that's definitely, definitively backed up by what's there in the piece that you never did intend. Like the piece spoke through you before you spoke through the piece. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And we live in a day and age of the DVD commentary and of the special features where people come along all the time and tell us what they meant. And I think that's damaging to work.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's the thing is I like having the background and I like knowing what they were trying to do, but ultimately I think that, like I said, is much less interesting than interpretation. Milan and I did a video a couple months, during Thanksgiving season, because I was in New Mexico at the time. Yeah. We did a video on Fanon, and I think Fanon very much speaks to this. You know, there's that Fanon James Bond theory that that 007 and James Bond is a code name for a certain type of agent.
Yeah, and I hate that. I despise that.
Really?
I hate that
love
idea.
I love it because that means you get every version of Bond. I love that.
I don't like that.
That's very Grant Morrison too. He does that a lot, where it's like, oh, this way the Silver Age was a hallucination.
Yeah,
and that's a very interesting thing, because it does reference the original artist, but it also references everybody else's take on the character. Yeah, and
I don't know. It's just actually, to be fair, I think I was told Skyfall contradicted that theory, but I find
because you actually saw the house he grew up in, and it's called Skyfall, and his dad is.
Yeah, but the Skyfall's a new continuity, so.
Well, no,
everything from Casino Royale forward is a new continuity, so.
No. My point is though, it's you get to have every Bond, and I think that's very much the author of the books, Ian Fleming, and the creators of the films, every name A to Z you can think of. Are essentially dead to the end. It's thank you very much, Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig and company and Sean Connery and company for making these movies. Now they're ours, and you guys can go away until you make another. I feel like Fanon is very much tied to the idea of the death of the author, and I think comic books and just geek culture in general are probably the best expression of the death of the authors, plural. It doesn't sound as poetic when you say it like that, because once it's given to the fans, how many times have you been in an argument with people where they go, actually, if you think of it this way, then suddenly everything is revealed and it all works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you think about it, with comic books, it's really for older readers. It's really what writer you follow. Usually, when you were kids, it was like, oh, what is Batman doing this month? Now it's like, what is the writer writing this month? What is Grant Morrison or Matt Fraction? What book is he on? What is the type of quality that I can expect from this author? And what is the unique perspective it can bring to a character that I originally kind of liked or disliked? We'll see what's his take on it. And so, but that's the thing. Yes, in the comic book medium, the authors are technically dead, but at the same time, they're not
sometimes
really.
Quite literally.
Yeah, quite literally, but sometimes their work is the things that we follow. We don't follow it because it's a Batman title. We follow it because it's a Grant Morrison story.
Well, then that depends on the person, though, because not every Batman fan necessarily is going to know who Grant Morrison is.
Yeah.
So they do follow the character, and I think listen, here's the thing. Fiction is an extremely generalized idea. I don't know if that's saying something obvious. Obviously it is, but you have to take everything by case basis. In Batman's sense, I do think that, again, in a sense, the authors are dead. Batman is what the stories bring to Batman fans and how Batman fans view them. Everyone has their own opinion on Grant Morrison's run, on The Dark Knight Returns, on Batman Year One. But still, at the end of the day, the author created them, and I think that we would be like. I still agree with Mon a little bit, because I still think we would be remiss to ignore the author and just look at it in the terms of this universe, in the terms of this character, without taking that into consideration.
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Bill, I know you don't really care for Dark Knight Returns. Milan, how do you stand on it as a story?
Dark Knight Returns. I'd see it as...
do you
I
like
love it. I love it.
Okay. Cap, where do you stand on Dark Knight Returns?
I like Dark Knight Returns quite a bit.
I think it's good, and I think this is actually an interesting thing to get into, because Bill and I have talked about Dark Knight Returns before, and I know he doesn't really like it, and I say, yes, but you've got to understand it in the context of the time, because for most people, the public perception of Batman back then was Adam West, and this radically changed it in a lot of ways. It turned Adam West to Clint Eastwood. But the thing is, that's similar to it's not necessarily the death of the author, but that time has passed. Is context really relevant in this idea? Do you guys feel that context of time or context of place in history matters for a work?
I do think it does.
Yeah,
I absolutely think it does.
I think there's a time where, yes, it does at the time that it's written, but then as decades move on, the book kind of becomes an Elseworld story, or it just becomes a story on its own. The context of the time doesn't really matter. Well, on the other hand, yes, it does, because you can explain away the art style or the writing style, but then it's just like preferences.
Well,
and that's the thing.
I think
Cap, go ahead.
I think there's an idea here that we're kind of jumping all around and beating around the bush about a bit, and that is that I think what you guys are discussing is a great deal more about the nature of continuity that is so much about the death of the author, because everything you guys are discussing right now are properties before they're singular works of fiction.
That's very
we're all
interesting.
geeks, so we all read so much Batman that it just is the natural thing to jump on.
Sure, absolutely. But I think what's important to remember is that the nature of the question changes when you start talking about long-lived properties that everybody gets, not everybody, but that so many authors get their hands on. Because what you're talking about at that point isn't so much you have one person who puts out a work, and then what we're trying to decide is how much we need to know about that person to appreciate the work, or as you just said, about the time period they lived in. But it's also that you've got a character that's being constantly reinterpreted by different people and built upon by different people. So you can't look at it as singular authors. You're talking about a lot of people that all influenced one character.
That's a very good point. Sorry.
All of those. Oh, I'm sorry. And that's in all of those authors have their fingerprints on it, and it becomes at some point nearly impossible to distinguish who, like at this point, what writer has influenced Batman the hardest. You know what I mean? You go look at what Scott Snyder is doing right now, and that's I mean, it's Scott Snyder's Batman. And then there's 500 other people who had their imprint on it before that he's borrowing from.
Mm-hmm. Very much. I'm very much seeing Frank Miller and what he's doing with Joker.
Subconsciously or otherwise. And he can't help it because he wouldn't even know who all has influenced his Batman work, because the character continues to evolve. I think that's... I'm not saying it's a different topic, but it's a little bit different than simply looking at a singular work and saying, okay, how important is it that I know that Keats wrote this, or that you see what I'm saying? It's a bit of a different question, I think.
So,
all right, well then let's pick on a singular work.
Ian, can I just say one thing? Because I want to.
Sure.
Captain, sorry, I keep calling you Captain. Logan, you really did bring up, Cap. You really did bring up that's very interesting, because that was almost very similar to what I'm about to say. See, with things like comic book properties, with work like with organic character work, like comic books, which is basically every month you get a new writer, artist, what have you. Yes, with those types of organic works, the authors, quote unquote, are kind of dead, because every month there's every story arc or so, there's a new guy, there's a new girl, there's somebody giving a little bit more of themselves into this character. But with works that are more controlled by the author, like let's just say the Harry Potter books, for example, or any sort of book where the author, the audience waits for the book to come out and waits for that one author to write that one character, or to write that one's book stories, that one story that they're writing about. That author is not dead, but their books are out in the public, but still the author has the control of the character. But with Batman and with superhero characters in comic books, it's basically much more of an organic and hot potato game. Everyone gets a chance to hold the hot potato, but then you gotta move it on before in a blink of an eye, and all that's left is just good work, or in some cases really bad work, and all that kind of over time bleeds together.
Yeah. All right. So let's Cap brought up you brought up a really good point there with the idea that we can't really talk about long-standing characters that have been around and written by a million different people because there's going to be not only contradictions, but there's going to be a very wide range of opinions because they're all influencing one another. So let's go with a singular work that I haven't read it, but I'm very aware of the work, and I'm sure everyone else here is. J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye.
Oh yes, I have read it myself.
Okay, Cap, I'm assuming you're aware of it.
I actually have never read Catcher in the Rye.
Neither have I, so that's fine, because we're not going to talk about specifics.
That's something that my wife and a number of people I know had to read in high school, and somehow I avoided it completely. I never had to read it.
I had to read it in 10th grade, so...
I read...
Bill.
I read the first...
I'm making fun of you.
Oh.
What else is new?
I read... That's quite new. Him making fun of me is usually the standard.
No, whenever you're not here, he tears me apart.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ian. At least you're fair. But with me, Catcher in the Rye...
I'm a benevolent god.
Yes, in the Christian sense. But with me, Catcher in the Rye, I just read the first half of the book, and I couldn't get past the little kiddie thing, like, hey, I grew up in the South, la 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 la, because the real meat of the book is at. The first part of the book is basically you follow the kids around. Yeah.
This is not a review of The Catcher in the Rye.
No, but what are you talking about?
I don't know. Anyway, The Catcher in the Rye stands as a very interesting place because J.D. Salinger was someone that very much believed that the author is dead. And he spent the majority of his life after he wrote this very successful book attempting not to be famous. Because he didn't want to look into his biography. And he didn't want people
I don't know if you bring this up.
Yeah, just one second. He didn't want people looking into his biography. He didn't want people to attempt to understand his work through him because he was very much of the opinion that the author and the work are not one. But the other really interesting part of Catcher in the Rye is when you actually do know something about J.D. Salinger, you do start to understand other things about the work that aren't actually in the work based on historical context as well. J.D. Salinger was part of that World War II generation of writers, the writers that went over across the sea and came back, and a lot of them wrote about war, and instead J.D. Salinger wrote about, first world problems.
Alienated youth.
Yeah, and stuff like that.
Can I say something quick?
Yeah, I'm almost. I find that really interesting, and it speaks to it, and it kind of contradicts me and J.D. Salinger, and I don't know, I'm curious where you guys stand on that. Bill, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that J.D. Salinger's belief in the idea of the death of the author is very apparent because one thing is that I think past the first edition, he didn't want really a cover for the book. Most of the current editions of Catcher of the Rye that you can get, I think, are blank white covers. And the reason of that is because that he didn't want the reader to see whoever was drawing the cover's interpretation of Holden Caulfield. He wanted it to be whoever they saw him to be, however they interpreted him. And that's very apparent with that because, it's a blank white cover. And I've seen the original cover, and funny enough, it's actually Holden with his head turned to the perspective. So even then, it's not really a big deal. But I can see where he's coming from. And let me say this. That is one of the cases where I almost think the death of the author thing, like, again, one of the specific examples where I almost agree with it, because when I read that book, I put myself in Holden's shoes. I borrowed his perspective. I saw the world through his eyes, and I found out that the way he saw the world was similar to the way I saw the world. And it was just a really interesting experience in that regard. And I do think that in that case, the background of J.D. Salinger, a cover for the book, if you will, would have tainted the experience. But again, that's just one example.
Okay. Cap?
Go ahead.
Any opinions? Like, I haven't read the book. I just know of it, and I know of the author.
Yeah, I certainly respect that opinion, and like I said, I share it to a degree. And of course, this is coming from someone who did allow my book to have a cover on it, and somebody else interpreted,
Yeah, right.
I don't go that far, but what I really appreciate about that is that he was clearly an author who cared a lot about the medium he was writing in, and
That's true.
And novels and short stories afford us to give the reader a lot of credit and to force the reader to do some of his own legwork, and to come right out and say, this is what I meant by this, or here's my whole biography, so that you have a better understanding of the writing I did. I think it's much more. I think that you get more out of a work, at least on a first-time read, by trying to maybe do some of that on your own, sometimes it's kind of interesting to read something like that and let the author completely fade into the background, and then when you're finished, go, I wonder what this man's life was. I wonder who he was, and Ian, I respect what you said earlier about how maybe because you got so much more out of it after you found out that who the man was, that maybe that contradicts even his concept of why the death of the author is a good idea. But I still kind of see it more as, again, like special features of a movie where we're like, yeah, it tells you more about the making of it, but does it really change how you felt about it the first time you read it? Do you really want to have to know who Joss Whedon is before you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
That's a very interesting.
Don't you get more out of it if you get to experience it on your own, and those characters become personal friends of yours, and then maybe later on you take a look at the person who created the work, and it tells you more about it afterwards. But I really believe in the idea of let yourself be immersed in a work that you really enjoy before you know about the process of creating it. I never do any research on a film when I'm reviewing it before I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point, because with some movies or some stories where the story and the work itself is so good that when you go and find the author or find the special features and see and the commentary, in some cases it really kind of cheapens the film because the magic is gone. The magic is gone from the work. If you know, it's like seeing a magic trick. If you know how the magic trick works, it's not really all that impressive anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Actually, there's
one
thing I wanted to bring. Go ahead, Milan. Finish up.
One little thing. And one thing when you said like that, the author of Catcher in the Rye came back from the war and wrote about first world problems and in the youth and stuff. It's really interesting because in Russia, well, not even Russia, but I think there's a tendency for certain war authors and certain people who have been in war to, when they come home, they tend to try to get away from that experience, and that I've seen all I need to see of war. I want to see how the youth are going. I want to see the future. I don't want to remember Johnny's legs, flying 10 feet in the air. I want to talk about the stuff that is relevant now, not the bloodshed.
Well, in some cases, the bloodshed is relevant, though. So.
All right, let me bring up one thing, because I think this is also really relevant to the topic, and since we're on Catcher in the Rye, which is the other hidden reason I brought it up. Ha 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 ha! I steered the conversation. Let's go into the problems that come with interpretation. When you have interpretations by the mentally disturbed, because guess what? Catcher in the Rye, cited by several shooters, including the guy that killed Lennon.
It's true.
It's one of those really interesting things. It's interesting that I bring up the problem with my own argument here, but if every interpretation is valid, which is very much what I'm going to argue, or what I'm trying to argue here, every interpretation is valid, does that make these interpretations from the mad valid?
Indeed, it makes, in that case, then doesn't it make Twilight the best work ever published in somebody's opinion? I mean, that doesn't make it true?
Thank you for taking such an eloquent, interesting moral issue and bringing in Twilight, Milan. Thank you.
That's my job. That's my job.
We have very little Twilight jokes on this show, so it's nice to get some variety.
What I was going to say is, at the very least, just because somebody took that from it, and it's really unfortunate, doesn't make it intentional on the part of the author.
I'm not saying it's intentional on the part of the author, but we're saying that I'm arguing that the author's intention doesn't matter, so that makes every interpretation valid, in my opinion. Even if I find the interpretation invalid personally, I think every interpretation from work is valid, so what does that make an interpretation from a mad mind?
Well,
you know,
if you don't mind me disagreeing with you to a degree, I don't think.
Go ahead, Captain. Go ahead.
I don't think every interpretation of something is valid just because somebody has it. Especially because you're talking about obviously crazy people who went and killed folks. I think that any interpretation of a work that can be backed up by clues and evidence within the work is valid. So, if somebody comes to me and we both read the same thing, and they have an entirely different way of looking at it than I do, and they say, well, I see it because of this part and this part and this part, and I say, wow, I would have never drawn those conclusions, but clearly you've got something there. That doesn't mean that because somebody went, because even, and I think even just because, although it's something to be looked into, but I think, even because, more than one person went and shot somebody because, and maybe not even because, but just, they all had happened to read the same book and they mentioned it, I'm not sure that it makes that interpretation valid. I think that maybe it spoke to people that were already, mentally in a bad place,
and I'm not denying that. I think they are mentally. I mean, Mark David Chapman was a loon. That's just absolute crazy. But I still find the interpretation valid, provided it's a genuine interpretation, and that I think there is such a thing as over-analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Cough,
right.
cough. Sometimes the sky is blue just means that the sky is blue.
No, that's right, for sure.
But I still find an interpretation is let me put it this way. I find a genuine interpretation when someone genuinely feels that the work is speaking to them in this way, even if they can't cite it necessarily, even if they can't look up a direct line and says, this is why I should kill John Lennon, or this is why I should kill Ronald Reagan, like Butters did. Sorry, South Park reference. I love that scene. Just he reads Catcher in the Rye and just puts it down, kill John Lennon.
Well, and I said that having not read the work.
Neither have I, and that's...
At no point did I read it and go, I should kill John Lennon.
Well, what I was going to say is...
I did.
Now that you've brought that up, and I know that history, I think that already will taint my reading of it if I ever sit down and read it. You know what I mean? Like it's really interesting how these sorts of things go. You can't now you can't change that perception. Oh, that's that book that people read and they killed people.
Yeah, I think this was a couple years ago. It might have changed since I remember hearing this, but Catcher in the Rye is actually the book cited the most that is non-religious for killings or mass killings.
Wow.
Weird, right? The people, it's back when I read the list, it was Quran, Bible, and there were a couple other religious texts, and then when you got into non-religious ones, Catcher in the Rye was at the top.
Well, I mean, there's obviously something there that would be...
Well, it's all about... It's like that's the major theme of it, was
sure.
that, he hates all the phonies, he hates the adult world that, abandons him and his problems, and
right.
he doesn't like people being, quote-unquote, phonies. It's weird how much I know about this book without having read it. Which kind of, once again, contradicts my own point, now that I think about it.
How so?
I'm talking about. I don't think that historical context or popular context matters. I think it's interpretation that matters,
right.
And I think it's personal interpretation that matters. And I'm sitting here spouting off all these facts about the author and the history of the book and all this stuff.
Yeah, but Ian, you just knew that kind of off. It wasn't on purpose. You didn't seek out the research necessarily by yourself. It just, you were in a class. Maybe you were in a class one day. The teacher brought it up.
Actually, I was watching 6 Degrees of Separation. Probably Will Smith's best movie. Because he does not play the same character he plays in every movie.
But you didn't watch that movie because you knew, there's a really cool scene regarding Catcher in the Rye in there. So, it doesn't really contradict your point. I still kind of disagree with your point, but that still doesn't contradict your point because you're still,
I feel like it does, so obviously my interpretation is valid.
We're proving and disproving our own points just by talking.
It's a giant circle.
Yeah.
It's a giant Mobius loop.
I kind of want to go back to the discussion before about validity of interpretations because I wanted to say that I more agree with Cap because the human mind is a very powerful weapon, and I think the human mind is capable of nearly limitless things. So, really,
Yep.
you can, and you guys touched on this with over-analysis, but you can take anything, and really, you could realistically pull out anything you want out of it. The thing is that that's working within your own mind, and if you, let's say we got into a conversation, we had a crazy person with us who read Catcher in the Rye, and they pulled that out.
What are you talking about?
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You can make fun of my schizophrenia.
No, I'm not talking about you, though. I'm just talking, because we're using crazy as kind of a generalized term. Anyway, here's the thing, though. If someone pulls that out, and they created it in their own mind, and they pull it out, and it doesn't make any sense to anyone else in that room, I don't think it's a valid opinion. Because I think that at least, someone has to look at that and go, I saw that too, or maybe I don't agree, or I didn't see, but I can see where you got that. With a crazy person, they made it up in their head somehow, it's impossible to understand it. So I don't think that makes it valid.
Yeah, because for a crazy person, and for real for anyone, for a crazy person, whenever they read something or take something away, it really depends on what you have. But for them, for crazy people, they think that art is talking to them, and that everything has to do with them. It's a giant kind of ego, superego thing that the universe revolves around you, and the fucking records are talking to you. And Catcher in the Rye has these similar themes of death and hating authority, and thus, hey, you hate authority, thus this thing is telling you to kill people, but not really.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think it's an interesting line, because, like I said, I do think that actual intent and actual biography is important because it adds layers, and if anyone ever asks Holden Caulfield, does your book have any intent to inspire people to kill people for not being genuine? I'm gonna take a stab in the dark. If you could get him to answer that question, he would say no. Because he's not a terrible person. That being said, or he was not a terrible person. He's dead now. That being said...
the author is dead, okay.
Yeah, see? Get it? Because...
we're still talking about him.
Dead.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's such a weird thing with his book. He's like, clearly here's a person that says, what I think about my book does not matter. Read it and interpret it your own way. But there's so much to it, and there's so much to his life that makes that extra interpretation, that extra level there, that you want to explore his life. You want to explore his thoughts on it, because it's not that, Cap, you were bringing up this with the review, it's not that what he intended to do would make it a better book. It's that we want to know if there's something we're missing as interpreters that he put there.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When you write a piece and you're constantly trying to make it better, as you ought to, because the first draft of anything usually doesn't stand, and you're having people look at it, one of the things that you really ought to be doing is trying to see if what you wanted people to get from it, people are getting from it. You also want to allow the piece to do what it's going to do despite you. Because that can be a great and powerful thing, and sometimes you'll write a thing. Stephen King said this in his book on writing, and which is, by the way, one of the best writing books ever written. I'm about to put a video out talking about it on Recommends, and Stephen King in his book says that when you sit down, or at least in his opinion, what he likes to do is when he writes a book, he doesn't sit down thinking about things like theme or a message or any of those sorts of things. He's just telling a story about a person, and then he'll have a rough draft, and he'll take a look at his rough draft. And if something like that presents itself, where he, in spite of himself, realizes, holy crap, I wrote a book about X. This is a coming of age story, or this is a book about a father and a son coming to have an appreciation for each other. Whatever the theme ends up being, then in his next draft, he'll try to bring those thematic elements more to the forefront, so that the book is about something. But if it ends up just being a really good story, that you can't just immediately go, okay, this is what the theme is, and it's a story, that works as a story where you have a protagonist that wants something and is on a quest and has an opportunity for change, all the things that you need for a story to really work, then it's not necessarily, you know, a problem that like he himself as the author doesn't immediately, you know, find that thematic element while reading it. Maybe the book is still okay anyway. Maybe you're too hoity-toity to go, this is the theme of my book, or this is the message I had that I wanted people to get. My point is, as I said when we started, the thing has got to stand on its own. And so, you as the writer, if you intended somebody to see something in your book and, you know, 0 out of 10 readers get that, then the problem is not with those readers, the problem is with your book.
That's really interesting, because I'm reading Stephen King's It now, and there was a really interesting scene where one of the characters, who is a very famous horror writer, you know, whatever, he's in college, and he's in this writing class, you know, creative writing class, and basically everyone there is basically this hoity-toity, pretentious douchebag, and the author's like, oh, money doesn't matter. You've gotta, you know, they over-explain everything. They don't let the story stand on its own. They're just like, oh, this story is about a cow who finds an engine in a field,
The
and
cow
it may
is
or
a
may
metaphor
not.
for life.
Stephen King,
exactly.
King is revealing himself a lot in that scene, because one of the things he talks about on writing is how much he hates writing workshop classes.
Oh my god! Yeah, and it's very funny that when character, he writes a story about a little boy fighting a monster in a cellar, and he doesn't realize that he's writing about his, you know, brother who was killed as a child, and it's really interesting that he sells that to a horror magazine, and he actually makes some like $200 off it. And at the time, it was like the 70s, 60s. That's quite a bit of money to sell for a story. And he pastes the receipt on his teacher's, like, you know, puts the receipt on his teacher's table. And when he gets like his paper back, his report back, he just has like the teacher just putting an F there on his. He keeps the writing teacher hates him because he just writes pulp. He just writes good stories instead of, you know, adding like, you know, the spaceship doesn't mean, you know, the giant, you know, rocket-sized spaceship
is a metaphor for life.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a giant phallus and it's going out to space, and the character just says, no, it's just a story about a spaceship. And like, oh, F. You're like, no, but the story that he writes is about a kid fighting a monster, and it does end up to be something, you know, much more personal, but he doesn't even realize about it. But he shows the receipt to his teacher, and the teacher said, like, money is not important. And the guy goes, like, yes, it kind of is. If you sell your work, people are reading it.
And what's really interesting about that is that, of course, those people exist and they're everywhere. And what you deal with is people who have been told forever what makes a good story, and that you know, a good story is that it has, you know, layer upon layer upon layer, and that the author has to intentionally plug in all of these thematic elements and you know all of these different parallels and those sorts of things. And if we are passionate people who care about things, who have opinions, who maybe have particular ideals and religious ideas and things like that, if you care about something and you sit down and write, those things are going to come out anyway. And once you realize what they are, as Stephen King says, and I agree with him on that. And by the way, I don't agree with him on everything. I don't agree with him entirely on writing workshop classes. But then you can bring some of those things to the forefront a little bit when you recognize them. What's really interesting about that character and people like that person, because he was probably writing somebody that he knew. What's interesting about that is that it's somebody who thinks that they are thinking very, very deeply, and what they don't realize is that they are actually just plugging into a very simple formula.
Yeah,
exactly.
I agree with that.
And it's really interesting. It's really interesting that, yes, you can add a lot of layers, you know, and then like politics and all that in your story, But it's really interesting, even after postmodernism and all these, like, destroy the basic hero, destroy the plot, try to make the story almost incomprehensible through, minor inconsequential detail.
Yeah.
Not to say that if it's done well.
Well, it's funny because this is a postmodern idea we're talking about.
Yeah. It's. I'm not saying that if it's done right, it's not entertaining. I mean, Inception is an incredibly entertaining film, but if you overdo it, and the story gets drowned by all this nonsensical politics and this thing stands for this, that's why you can't pay attention to the story because you're trying to see what everything means. It's just sometimes a tree is just a tree, and it's really interesting that the really basic kind of hero saves the girl, fights the monster. Just these really simple kind of almost mythic archetypes live on, even if you
still works.
It still works, and it's just basically Stephen King, It story, the book It. It's just fight the monster. That's all it is. It's and it doesn't have to be like the actual dragon, but metaphorically as a theme, it does really much work.
Okay, let me get into just one thing real quick that you hit on the line. I took an acting class just because I needed to fill some schedule time, and I found a very interesting thing in the book. They talked about a play that I really enjoy. That name is escaping me for some reason right now. Written by philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, and it takes place in a room that is hell. And there's a man who is gay.
I know what that's like.
A woman who... Oh, yeah, you do. A purgatory of your own making.
A purgatory of my own making.
Dude, just one spot in your video. Just please shout to the ceiling when you read, like, a really bad comic. I'm in a purgatory of my own making.
Well,
and get, like, a crane shot.
The purgatory was my office. The graveyard is actually hell.
No. Just... Oh, okay. Well, I'm in a hell of my own making. And do, like, a crane shot and everything. It'll be awesome. Anyway, no, just, I can't remember the name of it. No Exit. There we go. No Exit is the name of it. There's a gay man, a lesbian woman, and a straight woman who is a nymphomaniac. Ooh. And they're in a room with each other, and the big line from the play is, hell is other people. Because they have to deal with each other for eternity. There's like, I saw a really good film version of it. There are two doors in the film version. The guy can't take these two women anymore. So he runs to one door, opens it, and closes it behind him, and he comes in through the other door in the room. And he's like, oh, this is ridiculous. That being said, No Exit is very much, like, I remember reading in the theatrical book, just, you can, as an actor, you can't, it's very hard for actors to do No Exit because there is no character there. It's all about the ideas. And I find that interesting. It actually gives us a really good opportunity, if you guys don't mind, to branch off of just, books and hard fiction and into other things like, plays and movies. But beyond that, there's one other thing I know I really wanted to talk about. Have you ever looked at a painting or a picture and thought to yourself, oh, that looks like this friend of mine? And then for whatever reason you had the chance to show your friend the picture and said, don't you think that looks like you? And they say, no, not at all. What the hell are you talking about?
One more thing before we move on about people looking into fictional work. R.R.A. Tolkien, the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings.
J.R. Tolkien.
J.R. Tolkien, sorry. I'm so embarrassed. But basically, his Lord of the Rings books, people saw them as allegories for World War II. And it's really interesting that what he said about, people saying that, that he's just talking about World War II and Sauron is Hitler. What he says is like, I fucking hate allegories. That's a direct quote from him.
Interesting. Alright, but like, with that example I pulled up, has anyone had that? Or is that just
definitely.
For sure.
Whenever I go to a museum, there's a lot of really great expressionistic art that I've seen in the Australian Museum, in the Sydney Museum, and it's really strange. There's almost like this connection that your subconscious has with the painting, and in certain ways it almost becomes to move, and the different brush strokes align themselves in your mind's eye, and they have a certain kind of context of their very own. I think this maybe this is just me, you putting your own thoughts and subconscious feelings upon a blank piece of work, but sometimes with certain works, it really, I guess it has to do with subtlety of brush strokes and I think art, especially painting, is more of a subconscious medium, more of a artistic medium. Where in writing, it's how the words, it's how the story goes. But with painting, being an artist myself, there's an almost subconscious art you have to master to paint.
Well, what I think it is with art.
Let me finish. You have to master a sort of subconscious way of portraying a certain emotion through just how you move the brush or the pen or what colors you choose. And sometimes it's subconscious and whatever. So yeah, you can.
What I think it is with art is there's so much less there, so it communicates the painter is dead, if you will, or the drawer. Or I really want a better word.
The artist, the creator,
the inceptioner is dead. I don't know. I'm just making shit up now. I think the artist is dead really works too because I think hold on. Let me get through it. I'd let you talk for like 2 minutes. I want to talk now.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
I think with art this happens and takes hold a lot more because there's much less there for the creator to communicate directly their ideas. There's this picture on the internet that's very funny to me, and it's a bunch of people standing in an art gallery looking at an empty frame, and it says, "This is not art," and then it shows this beautifully complex painting with, all these intricate details, and it says, "This is art." And I'm like, I get what they're saying, but I disagree with that because the empty frame does express something, and it's what are you taking away from this? What are you taking away? What are you putting into the frame from your own mind?
But then
the thing is with and with fiction or movies or what have you, you can directly communicate your theme. And I know, Cap, you've harped on that with superhero movies and stuff, where you don't always need the person or narrator to directly state the theme for the entire audience, like in Punisher 04.
Yeah, and isn't it always a great deal more effective when they don't? The difficulty you have with film is that you already have a very difficult time asking your audience to do anything active.
Mm-hmm.
Viewing film, viewing television, even looking at a play to a degree, except that's more minimalistic, so there's maybe more that your imagination has to do in a lot of cases. It's a passive experience. It's something where you could very easily tune out and not be doing anything. And I think I have maybe a decent analogy going off the frame thing, which is, and maybe you guys will think this is a silly idea, but Ian, you said that when you look at a frame in an art gallery that's empty, that's still perhaps art, that's still perhaps telling you something. And I say, only when someone asks you to. Only when you're told that's art.
I'd agree with you. I don't know. I think, it could obviously be turned into comedy very easily. You could have, on mental images, you have, ropes blocking this off and people surrounding it, people rubbing their beards like I'm doing now, but you can't see because this isn't video, but I'm still going to do it. You have people doing that, and then someone comes in and goes, people, we need you to move so we can put the picture in.
Yeah,
you could easily turn that into comedy.
The point,
but I think there is something there to it. I think that because if it's intentionally displayed as art, as this is art, look at it, and interpret what you will from it, I think you can definitely read into it, and I don't say that it's... I disagree with the point, it's not art. I agree that it's not very difficult art, as far as, technique goes. Get a frame, get a bunch of people together, say, hey, look at this, and then walk away.
The parallel I'm attempting to draw with that analogy is when your average viewer sits down and looks at say an action movie or just for the thing that I'm always doing a superhero film, most people aren't thinking that they're supposed to take anything away from that other than an entertaining experience. And I might look at something and say, well, no, wait, maybe it is a little bit more artistic than you think, and maybe I'm not reading into it too much. Maybe somebody was actually attempting to make something that is about something. And it's the same thing with the frame. You know, you look at that, and maybe somebody really was trying to say something with that. And I think perception with this is everything.
Okay, Milan, you've been trying to jump in, so go ahead.
Sorry, with that, I have this really kind of angry reaction to this. For me, it's like, oh, you can just have a blank frame and just that's art, and it's just a blank piece of paper, and you people can interpret anything they want to that. But that's so what? I can do that with a piece of paper, and it's just
and that's the thing. It's not technique heavy. For me, art is when you perform an action simply for the sake of performing it, and in doing so, other people are meant to read into it and see if there's a deeper meaning. Like, to me, I've said this before, in my personal opinion, bathroom vandalism is the highest form of art, because it is done without personal recognition or financial gain. And it happens everywhere.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Taking that logic, would you say that murder is art?
I think that people view it as art, but I don't. I think there are some people who are horribly sick that do view, killing as art. I believe there's a film made about that, and, Joker is an example of a character that uses that from time to time.
Absolutely.
I think that the idea is interesting to explore for a character, and I know that there are people that actually believe that, but I completely disagree with it. I think murder is a sick act, because guess what? Art should not impede on someone else's right to exist.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, Ian. This is where I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, what you say about the whole blank frame metaphor thing, because I think that art does, in fact, rely entirely on the person who created it, because in that case, you've got the blank frame there. Let's say it actually was just a back frame, and there was going to put the picture in later, and people were standing around trying to analyze it, but then someone comes along and says, oh no, we're putting the painting in now. That's not art to me, because whoever put that, blank frame there didn't intend people to sit there and analyze it, because they were going to get the real thing they wanted them to analyze.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm saying that you can easily turn it into comedy, or just to completely contradict me, you can use that point. But in my opinion, if someone put it there and that was their intention to have a blank frame on a gallery display, that is saying something, and that's what art tries to do.
Yes, and as long as the artist said, I'm going to put this out there because I want people to take something from it. I don't know what they're going to take from it, but I want them to take something from it.
No, intention is important, and I've said this a million times. Intention is important, but it's also got to be evident. It's got to be self-evident in the work.
Exactly.
I think that's
can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a little lost.
I have had people leave comments before on videos where they say, well, you think that intent is far more important than it really is. It's either good or it's bad, and I say, no, not really. It's more of a case-by-case basis thing. I think that if you, again, I'm going to use film as an example. If you sit down and you watch a film and it doesn't follow all of the, air quote, rules of good dramatic narrative, it could still be an absolute solid film, and I might still give it a 4 out of 4 on a rewind. I gave Sin City a 4 out of 4. It breaks every rule in the book, but it follows a lot of rules of what it really is, which is melodrama. And so intent is important, but the reason that film, in my opinion, works is because I could tell looking at it that it was trying to be a melodrama, and it's a damn good one.
Bloody hell, yeah.
Cap just comes. Oh my god.
So when I'm on somebody else's channel where they cuss a lot, I like to give just a little Easter egg, just one.
Well, no, I know. I was watching Spawn here, and you were like, the bastard got what he deserved. I was like,
so funny. A lot of people said that, and I was like, I wasn't aware that was a swear word. Goodness.
Bastard? Really?
Okay. We gotta get this thing over with. Okay, Captain America. Captain Logan. Sorry.
Captain America.
Sorry. Shut up. Before.
Cap, do you throw your mighty shield?
Yes, my mighty shield.
Cap, you gotta do one thing on this show. You can't do it on your channel, I know, but on this channel, I want you to say fuck.
I'm not gonna do it.
Come on.
Just because you asked.
Yeah, that diminishes
It's an artistic
real life.
expression now.
Yeah. It could mean...
If it just came up naturally, maybe.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, you would feel free to cuss
it's
on
not-
as much as you like.
It's not about the cussing. It's just I want to hear the syllables. I want to hear the cute little family-friendly Captain Logan say an inappropriate word. It has nothing to do with artistic expression. It's just the novelty of it.
And he wants it on record so he can go back and
So
play
you go
it
back and use
over
it,
over.
yeah, and after he insulted me by calling me cute, no less.
How is that an
What,
insult?
cute's an insult now?
Yeah, how is that an insult?
Oh,
I-
because it sounds dismissive. Oh, the cute, family-friendly Captain Logan.
I've never been called cute. How dare you? If I'm still waiting to this day for my mother to call me cute, and now
It's never gonna happen.
I
You're
know.
like-
This
Well, and
this
it goes
show
like
always
as far as
goes into
hideous
Milan
things I've
problems.
seen, it goes like Clayface, it goes like Milan, Clayface, the guy that was melting in RoboCop.
Killer Croc.
No, I already used Batman villain. Elephant Man.
Sorry.
God.
Milan, I gotta give you this. I have never been compared to the T-1000, so that's pretty cool. You got that. That's pretty cool.
Wait, what? No, not the T-1000.
I thought you said the guy who melted in Terminator.
No, I said the guy that was melted in RoboCop.
Oh, in RoboCop? Oh, well, okay, you got Clayface, so that's good.
There's someone out there who's like, "God, he's really cute."
Somebody's like,
There's some
Clayface.
sick person.
So basically,
There's some. Actually, I want to see. You know what? Challenge accepted. DC put out a cute action figure stuffed animal of Clayface.
Oh,
Go.
it exists.
What?
okay, well, I've seen you in a dress so many times. Seeing you in a, but it's not even a novelty
Did
anymore.
you see me in a dress so many times?
Oh, dude.
I
Oh
do
my
a video?
god, we're finding out terrible things about these two now.
Like, oh yes,
Secret
I did do a
campus.
video where I wore a dress, but I was just sitting down. Like I will, and I had a T-shirt on under it. I will straight up wear, I will wear that dress like
Get
I
your-
am going to.
dude,
You'll
where,
lose 50 of those subscribers.
dude,
And then
where-
gain 50 more.
if you wear makeup
My
and get
subscriber
your hair
base will
done,
go up exponentially.
dude, if you wear makeup, dude, if you shave your beard, wear makeup, and get your hair done, and wear a dress, then I will see. Okay, that looks good.
Okay, anyway.
Get
away.
I swear there was a topic here. I think we're gonna scare away Captain Logan. We already have very disturbing title card, and now there's discussion of me in a dress.
This is just the way this show goes. We always end up talking about something disturbing, and it's always Milan's fault.
Shut up! You're the one holding the turkey baster. Shut up.
No, but I am dead serious. If I beat Milan to 200 subscribers, I'll post a video of myself in the dress, but people have to ask, so I know that they actually made it over an hour into the video. Anyway, there was a topic, I swear.
Yeah.
Okay, but we kind of jumped around on the painting. Milan, I get that you don't like there's no technique put into a painting. I understand that
the most
that is not.
pretentious. I think the
Oh,
most
hey, I
pretentious.
agree with you 100%. I was just using that as an interesting analogy. With
Yeah.
frames.
For me, art is very much more intentional.
Yeah.
Not intentional. Art is
Oh.
very much more about, are you trying to say something? Or, to me, when someone pays you $100 to draw a picture, I don't really consider that art anymore. I consider that a service rendered.
Yeah.
I think
It
art
still be
is
art though, because
Yeah.
that would be like saying there's no there's no art in comic books because somebody got paid to do it.
No, I think when you're just doing it because, the thing is, comic book artists, they're not making as much money as they could be if they were doing art for other things. That's the thing to me, and writers also.
Yeah, but
They're doing it because it's a passion, but they also have, we live in the real world, they need
they
to
have
be getting...
bills to pay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is when you're only doing something for the money, I don't find it to be art.
I think
Well-
it's kind of subjective to tell when that's going on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
But-
not an easy thing to tell, because I think most people that have something to say that are trying to trying to express themselves in some way, that also just happen to be trying to make a living so that they have time to do that and they don't have to work 12 hours at a factory or whatever.
okay, contradict you. I have the perfect point to contradict you. You ready? It's 2 words. Miley Cyrus.
but that's a specific. The thing is that there's specific examples you can bring up with this.
Yeah, sure, of course. But I'm just saying that I think by and large your average person. Also, I think some people would very readily tell you, no, I don't make art. I think some people would be happy to say, no, I just do this for a living, and if people like my stuff, that's great, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I'm just saying, for me at least, art is all about whether or not you're trying to do it for the sake. Art is all about a self-experience that you're doing for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, that's true, and not to be too contrary, but I gotta ask you this question, because again, perception is everything, and I think it's very interesting. If you watched or listened to, read, etc., something, because I mean, you know, I like to take this outside of just painting or drawing, because I think that there's not much of a disconnect between that between you know that kind of artistic expression and writing. If you were to look at something that you saw in a very personal way and you saw it as art, and then later on you somehow discovered that the person didn't intend anything by it whatsoever and they were just cashing in a paycheck, what would you think about it then?
I have the perfect example that supports your point, Alan Moore in The Killing Joke, and I totally understand where you're coming from. He's completely abandoned that book, says, no, I wasn't trying to say anything, I think it's silly, I don't like Batman and Joker, I think they're very dull characters, even though I happen to base 3 of my characters in, you know, my biggest work ever that I am apparently proud of on them.
Ian, I think in the commercial society that we live in, you get less art than you get stuff people made to cash in a paycheck. But that doesn't mean that everything that was made to cash in a paycheck can't possibly be art.
Exactly.
Maybe I should refine my point. Maybe I should refine my point, because you are right. I do think that my point needs some definition. I think the highest forms, the best art, is stuff that's done for its own sake.
I disagree.
Again, depends. It really does depend.
And again, what's interesting about that is that if the work is supposed to stand on its own, who cares?
Exactly.
How would you know? You'd have to talk to that person and find out what their intentions were or what their motivations were.
I mean,
I'm just saying, me personally, I'm not saying that this is something everyone else should follow. This is just how I feel about it personally. My opinion has changed back and forth on this, because there are some things like The Killing Joke that I really do love that I know the author didn't care about, and that's why I do think that the author is dead. But that also adds layers to it for me if the author did care about what they were doing.
I think the thing that saves The Killing Joke is Brian Bolden's art. I mean, the script.
Yeah, but that's
by
not the
Alan
only
Moore,
thing about it that works.
Yeah, I know. Alan Moore,
we haven't discussed the fact that so many of these things are collaborative mediums either.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And I think, the script is, very great. Alan Moore, he brings his, he did try really hard, and he did get a great story out of it, but just a great story. And but yeah, it's very short, but it's still. For Alan Moore at least, he says that he doesn't care about it, but I don't know. Brian Bolden, I could see that he put a lot of work into this as an artist.
Here's the thing, though. In that case, Alan Moore didn't want to write a Batman story. Didn't want to write a Batman story that heavily involved the Joker. But I guess he had to. He was being paid to, so he said, "I'm going to make the most of it." That to me would still be art. He still tried to make the most of it, and what he came up with was a really damn good story.
Oh man, sorry, I missed that because I just had a little mini heart attack for a second. We're all good. I didn't completely miss it. Sorry, I didn't mention this when we came back, but sorry guys, Pamela crashed on us, and I was just looking at the thing, and it didn't, read that the file was there from the conversation. I was like, are you kidding me? No! And
I don't have to repeat my point, right?
No. It's just I just wanted to make sure it was there, and I just saw it. Sorry, I missed that, but I missed parts of that. But I agree. I do think that it's in this weird sticky area for when I really enjoy something, and the author happens to have abandoned it. Do I think that it matters? And
yeah, but Alan Moore does that with everything.
Does this coalesce?
Well, let me say that as the author of Spawn Year, I have read some Alan Moore where he was clearly phoning it in.
Yeah. I don't know.
Really?
And I don't.
And we'll get to that in just a few days too.
Well, here's my thing. I'm gonna say this, and this is not a popular opinion. You know how there are those artists that like Tupac, where even if love him or hate him, he died, and yet we keep getting stuff every couple of years from him that seems to be getting better and better. You know what I mean?
No.
The thing is, okay, fine, but you know that there are people like
I
this,
hope
even
that
if you don't
happens
like
to me when I die. Like, I hope I just have, like, 6,000 things I read or made that I never posted anywhere or that I never published, and then, like, somebody just keeps putting them out, and my hope would be that somebody would be able to, like, convince everyone that I was still alive for, like, 10 years.
No,
Prince, dude,
here's the thing.
That happens to you.
No, real quick.
Prince has.
The thing is,
Sorry, Prince.
the thing is, with Alan Moore, I really wish Alan Moore was one of those people, because every time I hear that man talk, I cannot stand him.
Why?
Every time he talks, he becomes more of an asshole.
Really?
I don't know how he does
That's a
it.
dick.
No, really?
No, just like, dude, seriously, like I read he did an interview where someone asked him how he felt about Jeff Johns doing Blackest Night, since that was all based on a story he wrote for Green Lantern. It's like, DC's just been ripping me off for years, and now they're taking my, mini stories and just, exploiting them, and I think John's work is just crap. Like, how nice of you, Alan Moore, to take someone who's really inspired by you and wanted to continue a story that you laid the groundwork for, and just shit all over them. Thank you, Alan Moore.
Really?
You're such a good person.
Later, can you show me that article? Because every sort of documentary I see about him, he always seems like a jolly little, jolly whack job.
He is, every time I hear that person talk, every time I hear Alan Moore talk, I hate him more.
They're like ancient, like early 70s documentaries are you watching? Because every time I hear that man talk or see him in a picture, I'm like, he looks like an asshole. Just the way he always looks like he hates the world. He always looks like, I don't want to be here.
Hold on, did you say jolly nut job?
Yeah.
That should go on a t-shirt, dude. I'm a jolly
Hi,
nut job.
I'm a jolly nut job.
Yeah.
I'm happy, and I give presents to children, but I'm terrible.
Santa.
He's like the Nordic Santa Claus. If you're a bad child, Santa Claus will come and kidnap you, make you make toys for the good children.
It's the South Pole Santa.
Fuck up millions of kids. Like, seriously, no, that is the actual Nordic myth of Santa Claus. That if you are a child, he will kidnap you and put you into slave labor to make toys for the good children.
But that's great, because it does a much better job of making kids be good and nice to their parents than Cole does. So it's okay.
Yes, but I mean, you go get Jason up right now and tell him that's what Santa Claus really does to bad kids.
Jason's 2.5, so he'd go okay.
No, I swear it won't mess him up for life. I promise, Cap.
Right now, I don't think it would. By the way, my kid, at least so far, isn't scared of anything, and it's hilarious.
Really?
Nothing bothers him. Nothing.
Oh, he's just one of those kids that like pick up a dead rat.
Well, I don't know. I haven't tried that. And I probably and I'm not that dad that would like let him watch anything at 2.5 or anything like that. Obviously, but like there have been times where he's seen something where I would expect that it would bother him or he'd cry or something. No, nothing.
Wait a minute, I don't believe you, because I believe I was watching you talk about, what was it, Superman versus the Elite, and he was getting freaked out by how Superman looked at the end.
Well, the thing is, it didn't scare him, he didn't cry, he just had this look on his face like, what?
Okay,
That's not Superman, what?
Oh,
it's weird.
See, this is how
I had the same reaction.
Yeah, he was like me. He was just like, "What is happening?" No, like it disturbed him, but it didn't scare him. He walked away from it, like it bothered him. But I mean, like it didn't scare him. He was just like, "What? That's not right, Dad."
He sat in his room for 2 hours, staring at a Superman toy, like, why?
No,
Cap, this is how I know I'm obsessed with you, because I know things about you and your child that you don't even remember off the top of your head.
Yeah. Everybody says that I'm the creepy stalker. Oh, yeah, Ian's like just as creepy and stalkerish as I am.
But you are, Jolly.
It's not like, hold on, it's not like I have a camera hidden in Captain Logan's office, staring at him right now, as he sits there, wondering whether or not he should get a Mountain Dew, and looking at the second computer monitor, checking around the room now, looking in the corners of the ceiling.
You got one too? Good.
Well, actually, my second screen is blank, and I got half a thing of Mountain Dew sitting in front of me, so I'm good.
Dang, that's what I just.
Wait, what?
There was a delay on the camera.
Yeah. So
That's
basically,
what Bill and I did last video. We just tried to, let's do it again, Bill. Alright, for those people listening to this right now, if you happen to be laying on your couch, on a laptop, and you're searching through your Netflix queue to see what you want to watch after listening to this episode of Geeky Gentlemen, leave a comment saying, "Where are you in my house?"
Where are you in my house?
You know, if I had to describe Ian, I think I'd go with Jolly Nut Job.
But I love doing that. Like, I'm just waiting.
too.
Like, no lie, Cap. You and Vince did that to me once. You were like, it wasn't the We Review You episode.
Oh, okay.
There were some things. I was wearing a hat when you said that. You're like, oh, I think you look really good in that hat. And Vince goes, I think if you move the object behind you 2 inches to the left, it'd look really good. And I just looked behind me and I was like, oh my god, it does.
I had a few people that left comments that said, "Oh my god, they pointed at this thing," and it was like really funny when they said what we pointed at. One person was at a McDonald's watching it and said, "Oh my god, Captain Logan pointed at a wet floor sign."
Oh my god. Oh, so basically, your son is basically fearless.
I mean, not entirely, but yeah, there are things that don't scare him that I would expect.
Okay, then, you know, it's just a matter of time before Captain Logan sits his son down in front of the TV and starts showing him Cinemax.
No, it's not.
Why did we have to bring that up? Why am I not surprised Milan's the one that...
I'm sorry. I thought it.
Milan, you're
I
proving
thought
my
that was
point.
meant to be funny. I'm sorry. I failed. Another joke.
Milan,
fell through.
you're not funny. You
know,
cannot say things that are funny. You're only funny to make fun of. Okay, so we've gotten off on a huge
I'm
tangent.
sorry, Logan. I'm
Milan,
so sorry.
Milan, for what it's worth, I think you're still sort of funny. You said you called Alan Moore a Jolly Nut Job, and that was hilarious.
That was
Okay,
a statement
It
of
was
fact.
funny because he didn't really intend it to be funny.
That's why it
Yeah.
worked.
Exactly.
Okay,
So we use things about him and we make jokes about
With
them.
humor, intention is not always relevant, it turns out.
Oh, interesting.
very much true.
We're back to the
Very-
topic.
Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah, actually, we keep glancing over what Milan wants to say, and I agree with you, Milan. Hanging a picture up in a gallery is not art from a technical side of things. I think it's art from a expression kind of side of things. But yes, technical art. Let's talk about technical, stuff that requires craft. Because that's something, I know we're getting out of your comfort zone, Captain Logan, but I think it's really relevant material here.
The
That's
thing
cool.
about
I
that,
don't know if I'll have anything to say. Go ahead.
the most pretentious freaking thing I've ever heard in my entire life was I heard that there was a person who basically sold a very a picture, a blank canvas with a black dot in the middle of it, for $3,000 million.
Those numbers don't...
3,000 million? That's not a... What?
I don't know,
I
a lot of
I
fucking
kind of
money.
spaced out for a second. It came back 3,000 million. What?
Milan, I'm going to write a comic book with a villain who holds the city for ransom for $3,000 million.
Oh god. But anyway,
Make it through the Dr. Evil thing.
Milan, may I tell you the pretentious one I ever saw?
yeah.
Went to a museum once back in college, and I saw this, or was it high school? I forget. And I saw this. My wife was with me. We are still making fun of this to this day. On the wall there was what I could only describe as a wire octagon. It was there were like pegs in the wall holding wire in the shape of an octagon, and the piece was called Wire Octagon.
I don't think that's pretentious at all. I think that's the best scam ever caught.
Art is just one big scam.
Now you
No,
now
no,
you
Phil, don't
understand.
say it, don't
Now you understand the artist.
No, Milan, you had such a good opportunity for a joke there. You should have said, and now I have to kill all of you. To have found me out. Seriously, that's the thing. The one that bugs me, even though I understand why people like it, the one that bugs me is when people splash paint on a canvas. Because the thing is, I've seen 2-year-olds do that. It's not art, and while there is to be said art in the child's expression, it's not really art to me. It's just anyone can do that.
Yeah, well,
You just happen to be the first guy that did it. He was an artist. Everyone else,
It's not art any more than just something that is randomly found in nature is art.
Yeah.
again,
Bill,
it
so
kind of goes with intent. If some kid in college just took a bucket of red paint and took his finger and just closed his eyes and drew all over the thing and then opened his eyes and walked away, that's not art to me because the intent was just, I'm gonna fuck with people. and just draw a random couple of lines. That's not art to me because it's a joke. And it's kind of a funny joke to see the reaction, but it's not art. It's art in terms of jokes, but it's not art in terms of art.
I just want to make the most, like, minimalist painting of just, like, a red line. And just take it to a gallery, hang it on the wall, and just have all these pretentious douchebags walking around like, oh my god, the line represents life. And just overanalyze, like, a red
and
line.
How it's
and then
slanted. I think life is slanted.
Exactly. And they...
the line is a metaphor for life.
Exactly. And just put a price tag for $3,000 million. And if
someone will buy it and be like, let me write you a check for $3,000 million.
So it's like, is $3,000 million like 3,000 piles of $1 million, or what?
It's all up to interpretation.
Oh, indeed.
Well,
actually, Bill brought something up that I kind of remember.
about live.
Oh, Bill,
Before
Ian, before we move on, everyone has said their most pretentious thing they've ever saw. Okay, Bill, it's your turn. What's the most pretentious fucking thing you have ever seen in your life?
I couldn't think of one at first, but I've come up with kind of a generalized thing. I'm currently in an English course, and every time we look at a poem, for like the first 10 minutes, I'm with the class on what exactly we're talking about, the theme of the poem, what the author was intending. And then my English teacher will point us to one word and take it out of context and analyze the shit out of that word and come up with another meaning inside of the poem. And I look at him and I kind of go back and like, not really. I'm just like, you just kind of pulled out a word and was like, made up your own meaning.
I'm gonna disagree with you there because there's a great. I can't remember the name. I can never remember the names, and that's why the author's dead because I can't remember the name. And I'm just gonna claim it. There was a guy who had a great quote with, I decided to work on one of my poems this morning. I spent an hour looking at it, and then I put a semicolon into the end of the fourth line, then spent about another 2 hours looking at it, analyzing what I wanted to do, and took it out. And I was done for the day. Came back and worked on it again tomorrow. Worked on it again tomorrow. See, the thing with poetry, you have to analyze every word to death because every word is intentional.
No, Ian, but that's not what I mean. But he takes it out of context. And it doesn't work with the rest of the poem. Not really. It almost contradicts the meaning of the poem.
Okay, that is
freaking hate that.
If you don't need context for a poem, then I could be like, watermelon. And then I can be like,
seeds are us.
And then I can be like, all right, Milan, what do you think it means?
Okay,
Dude,
the watermelon.
Captain Logan. The watermelon is a metaphor
For the womb.
life.
Life. Don't talk to me about life.
Captain Logan. Your
Are you going to analyze my poem?
Yes. Well, I was so touched deep inside by your one-word poem that I will analyze it right now. Give me like 2 seconds. Well, like give me like 5 minutes.
Give me 2
and
seconds.
Okay.
That's all you should need.
The watermelon. No, you disagree. That you are dead. So.
Sorry. I should stop talking. I'm dead.
Yeah. The watermelon.
Quick, Bill, get him with the injector. He's dead now. Bring him back.
I need his DNA.
Forget get the car battery, hook it up to my spatula, and take your shirt off.
I want to hear the critical analysis of my one-word poem.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me say. The watermelon represents the planet Earth, and all the tiny little black seeds are us. And the red, juicy nectar of the watermelon represents the beautiful and potent lava inside the planet Earth. And it also represents the blood that beats inside our hearts. The green exterior. Shut up, let me say. The green...
Sorry.
The green exterior represents the greedy, black, twisted, despicable heart of the consumer.
May I respond to that? What you just did was kind of art.
Yeah,
What
it
I
was.
did was not.
Yeah, if you wrote that down.
Well
that,
done.
Yeah. I was just gonna say,
No, the thing is,
you could look at the
actually
watermelon
Milan.
But I think Milan just wrote
What?
a poem about a watermelon.
No, Milan. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna post a series of videos that are like 1 to 3 word poems, and you're gonna respond to them as part of the Diary of Jebediah Springsteen.
Oh, awesome. Oh, Jebediah Springsteen minis. Oh my god.
See, the thing is, Milan started this video at my this video series at my bequest, inspired by Joe Frank, in which he talks like he's a crazy person in a basement that has access to radio waves.
But I am
So he's just-
but I am a crazy person in a basement having access to radio waves.
the documentary.
Well, no, but anyways, he started doing these series of videos. It's absolutely the perfect format for Milan because he's so good at just random, obscure, but ridiculously in-depth details. So it's great for him because I was watching one of them the other day and he goes, blah, 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 a million's dead, blah, 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 gypsies with machine guns, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god. I was talking about my family history, by the way, in that video.
You know,
Oh,
Milan, don't
interesting.
take this the wrong way, but I really enjoy it whenever anybody decides to do an impression of you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I do it all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it's been going around. There's a couple people that every now and again will be like, and now I'm doing Milan Jeftik. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome.
Whoa. People are
You
making
see, when I
impressions
was a child, I was very depressed.
No,
And
no,
I
no,
got my
Bill,
business
you
having
got to
access
get down
to
here
radio
like
waves,
this. You got
and I created this
Bill,
screwed
Bill,
up.
Bill, I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to keep talking
No,
like
no,
this
no,
and I'm
no,
going
let me
I'm going
finish,
no,
let
no,
me
no,
finish.
no,
No,
my friend, no,
let me
no, no.
finish.
Let me finish. No, Papa, I will get
Milan,
back to
I'm
you.
sorry,
Papa.
I didn't.
Oh,
Captain Logan, I want to have sex with you, but not in a gay way.
What's more fun is if you just get up in your microphone and you go, hello.
Hello, this is Milan Jeftik 1992. Hello.
Wait, Captain Logan, you actually heard people making references of me, and is it just Bill and Ian, or is it like others?
See, now I don't even remember who exactly it was.
Mark
There was
H.
somebody I was talking to one day who starts talking in this really low voice, and I was like, are you doing Milan Jeftik?
Who was that?
I don't remember now. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But somebody was sort of dead. I was like, are you doing Milan Jeftik? They were like, yeah, I'm doing Milan. I was like, that's awesome. That's a really good Milan Jeftik.
Dude, Captain Logan, please make my day. And what's your impression of me? I'm just fascinated by
Did
to
it
hear.
like 3 times.
Yeah, I'm kind of done doing Milan Jeftik impression.
Oh my god.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I've got one. Hold on, I've got one. Holy mother of fuck.
You just made Milan's day. He just ran off to go tell his parents that he got Captain Logan to say fuck.
Milan can't even talk because he's did that. You hear the beginning of it. He did that like girly squeal, but his voice just got so high that like dogs and Superman can't even hear it now.
Maybe that's what that was, yeah.
Superman's just like, what the fuck was that?
Superman's flying by. Wow, I didn't need that today, jeez. I got better things to do than to listen to that.
Like, I wish a lot was on tape right now, because I have a feeling like he's just waving his arms and fanning himself off.
I totally am.
Well, I don't think I've ever had that, I don't think I've ever done that to anybody before. I'm flattered, really.
Okay, there's a topic,
Rock
I
his
swear.
world.
There's supposed to be a topic, but well, it's okay because here on Sid Part 2's channel, we embrace the tangents.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We had a huge tangent. And
We
tried to get out of
the tangents.
We got out of the tangent a little
Dude,
bit.
no, wait, guys, stop for a sec. Cap, can I get you to say that, please? Can I get you to say our catchphrase?
What is your catchphrase?
Here on Sid Part 2's channel, we embrace the tangent.
How do you want me to say it?
Just say it in your awesome Captain Logan.
In my cat. Okay, hold on. I've got kind of a cold still. Okay. So is it it's on Sid Part 2's channel or it's on Geeky Gentleman?
Sid Part 2's channel.
Oh, okay, all right. Here on Sid Part 2's channel, we embrace the tangent.
Awesome. Thank you, Captain Logan. You just made my day now. Now just to be fair, you have to say something about Godzilla and then just Bill can die.
No, he already did. In his Incredible Hulk review, he talked about Godzilla, and I was like, yes!
Wow, I hope what I said was relevant and made sense.
It did. It definitely did.
Because I was probably just going, alright, gotta come up with an important monster movie. Guess it's Godzilla. Here we go.
See, actually, here we go. Finally, something transitioned back to the topic. Let's say that it was relevant. I don't remember the reference myself, but apparently Bill does. Bill, you think it was relevant to both the Incredible Hulk and to Godzilla as a whole?
Oh yeah.
Okay, now there's one other thing I wanted to make sure we talked about. In his article, the article we're talking about, Barth's, it doesn't matter, he's dead, so I don't have to remember his name.
The author's dead.
Yeah, but
he's dead, so he doesn't matter.
In his article,
his work must stand on its own.
But in his article, he claimed that the author is dead in every medium except in the writing of articles, whether they be philosophical reviews. And that's actually, here we go, here's a point to contradict that. Captain Logan just admitted he probably just stole a reference away, like, because I'm going to take a stab in the dark, you haven't seen a lot of Godzilla movies.
And to be fair, I don't remember exactly the reference. What I probably did was I referenced the one I know. And I probably knew enough about what I was talking about to actually say it, to be confident about it, yeah.
Yeah, it was, I was in stitches, because it made perfect sense. So.
Okay, maybe, but still, my point kind of works even if this isn't a real example.
No, it's cool.
Because that has happened.
That Bill was kind of a joke, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, like, the thing is, though, this does happen, where a reviewer will say something, but it will actually be true. And someone that knows about both things that the reviewer is talking about, the thing that the reviewer is actually reviewing, and the thing that the reviewer referenced that they know nothing about, it actually holds. And there's one person in the audience that knows both of these things. They're like, oh my god, that actually worked. And they then took something away from the author or the speaker or what have you that was not intended, but for their personal interpretation it worked. So is the reviewer, is the article writer safe from their own death?
Well, to be fair, he does talk about critics, so he does address it. And he says...
Yeah, he says they are safe. He says they're the only ones... this isn't his exact wording, but who cares? He's dead. He says they're...
We can just discount everything he says as he's dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
You are so respectful!
Yeah, I know. He says that they're the only ones that are exempt from this.
Well, he talks about how critics have sought to consolidate and raise up the author as this dictator over each work. He's basically criticizing critics for
so he's like the originator of who reviews the reviewers? I made Cap laugh very hard. I'm happy now.
Yeah, basically he is, because he's criticizing the critics for making this idea stronger that the author is the end-all be-all power in a story or in a fictional work. And I don't know if that means that they're safe, because you have to. Let's say we watch one of Cap's superhero rewinds in 20 years or 70 years. Why not? And if YouTube is still around somehow by some magic reason, and we look at it and we go, is Captain Logan still important in that review, or should the review stand on its own? And
what's really interesting about that, I'm if you don't mind me saying, I am of two minds about that, because one of the things I feel the need to say sometimes when I review something is, this is based on the last time I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you know what's...
I'm sorry, 1 second. When I watch it again later on, my opinion could be changed.
Right.
The person I am, this is a bit metaphysical, mind you, but the person I am, or let me use an example, if I may. The person I was when I reviewed Batman '89, for example, is not the person I am now. to a degree. I mean, we are the sum of our experiences, and I have had different experiences, and I would like to think matured as a person to a degree since then. And if I were to sit down and watch that movie again, there were a number of different factors that would probably change what I had to say about it at that particular point. Of course, I have talked about it since then. I did a commentary on it with Vince, and some of the things I had to say were different and perhaps even contrary to some points I made before. So it is kind of interesting if you look at a review as a piece, whether you want to call that art or not. I hesitate to do that, but just as a thing, in a way, doesn't it kind of encapsulate a moment in time? So it does
definitely
stand on its own.
Actually, you just hit on, it's not necessarily metaphysical, it's more phenomenological and existential, which you just hit on, because we're in my major territory now.
Existential is the word I was looking for. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the thing is, with it, just point one, you need to do a re-review of Batman '89, because I think that's the 5th time I've heard you say my opinions have changed on that movie. I think you need to bring Batman '89 back for another
I've
superhero.
considered it, although let me say that I do feel better about it since I did a commentary.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I think I've heard you bring that up like 4 or 5 times now through different videos. It doesn't have to be another full rewind, but I think you should go, I've reconsidered these points.
It's my go-to example, because that was a major movie I did second or third weekend, and it was not the show it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are others, certainly.
Yeah, it's just, I keep hearing you bring it up, and like, you should probably go back and do a re-review of that, because your opinions have changed drastically, and I think it would be interesting to watch them both. That being said, I do agree with you that your intent changes, and who you are and who you become over time changes, because your line there, we are the sum of our experiences, that's directly out of sight.
It's funny to say that we judge our maturity by what we think of Batman '89.
I'm not going to be able to talk for a couple minutes. I'm sorry.
But that's the thing about YouTube.
I have this mental image now of like a kid tried to go into a bar, like a 17-year-old tried to walk into a bar, and like the bouncer going, hey, how old are you? It's like, I'm 21. Really? What's your opinion of Batman '89?
But anyway, I'm just sitting here.
Oh my god, I would so get into a bar then. Thanks, Ian. I'm gonna go do that. Bye, guys.
I'd be more likely to get in a bar fight, but that's just me.
I'm
glad you're dead.
But anyway,
I'm glad there's a broken bottle in your face.
I can't believe we haven't used that line yet. Alright, just real quick. Ronald Barthes could sue Captain Logan for stealing his idea for who reviews the reviewers, and but the thing is,
but
Captain Logan's all like, "But I'm glad you're dead."
Oh my god!
Just stretch the hell out of that joke.
There is certainly such a thing as a literature on criticism, and C.S. Lewis has written a book on criticism.
Really?
I felt like
C.S. Lewis. Yeah. I borrowed it from my stepdad. I haven't had a chance to get into it yet, but I'm very interested in reading that and maybe doing a video on it or recommends on it.
And you find out that everything you've been doing is completely wrong with C.S.
Well, if that's the case, then I'll just chalk it up to the fact that A, he's dead too, and B, it's been a while since you wrote it. I'm kidding.
My entire career is a lie.
And it wasn't.
My career is a metaphor for my life. Wait, no, that one doesn't quite work as well.
What? Sorry. Go ahead.
That's the thing about YouTube that really fascinates me. Is that, well, there's gonna be a review on basically anything that has ever been brought up in pop culture, and you'll get a billion different views on that one thing, and YouTube holds all that information. There's like a quadrillion reviews of Batman '89 on YouTube, and you get every single perspective, or you get any sort of every single perspective on that movie from.
That's the thing, Milan. Is I hope Milan didn't just cut out. That's the thing. Well, YouTube is the prototype of the classroom of the future, because you have the speaker up in front of you talking, like right now. Let's get all metaphysical. This is metaphysical, by the way. Like you have the speaker in front of you talking, and then you have the chance to interact with them down in the comments. It's the same thing as raising your hand in class at this point. It's taken people a while to catch up and realize it.
Yeah, there's not a facilitator to say, no, we don't allow swear words in my class.
Except unless you go to Geekvolution.
No, people still swear in
Once
the
again.
comments, and I don't stop them.
Yeah, but other people do for you, so...
Whoa. People swear in, who reviews the reviewers in the comments?
No, just in any Geekvolution field.
I mean, in videos, yeah, sure. I mean, people swear. It's just a regular part of language. It's not like we have a rule that you can't watch my stuff if you curse, like...
Oh yeah, Milan, if that rule was there, Milan would just be heartbroken because he could never watch another Geekvolution.
Oh, me neither. I can't go a day without saying fuck a million times.
Dude,
no, it's like seriously,
it's just an East Coast thing.
Dude, I'm Russian.
Like,
the swear words, dude.
I have to count every day.
I'm Russian. Literally, every single word in our language is a curse. No, I'm serious. I'm not. That's not a joke. I'm serious. Every other word is a curse.
Well,
actually, one of the first
And
conversations.
it sounds beautiful.
One of the first conversations Milan and I had was him talking about when his mom answers the phone and is on with one of her friends. She goes, "Oh, you cunt! How's it going? How are your kids?"
Oh God. Yeah, that's one of those infamous words. But let me just say something about the whole critics thing before I forget it and we go into another tangent. Questioning whether or not the critic is dead when you're watching a review is almost to call into the question the idea of the birth of the reader must begin with the death of the author, because the critic is the reader, and they are simply communicating their reading experience. So when I watch Superhero Rewind, am I the reader of another person's reading?
Yes.
Yeah. So then you have to.
But if it's, I like to think that if it's done right, it's less like you're reading something and more like you're being invited into a conversation about it.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, but
that's
it's
how I
totally
approach it.
one-sided. But it's like almost completely one-sided though, because one guy talks for 40 minutes and you get 500 characters to respond.
Well, that's absolutely true. Sure, I mean it's not a real conversation, obviously, but what it does is it's bullet points that invite you to think about it. And I mean, like basically, and I don't mean this in a crass way because obviously I do communicate with people, over comments and PMs or whatever. But basically, when somebody makes a review, be it on YouTube or anyplace else, they're communicating a couple of things. They're communicating this is how I felt about it, and they're also inviting you, if they're objective and they're doing it right, they're inviting you to have your opinions too, and you're supposed to, at least in your head or maybe write it down, say, okay, this is where I agree with you, this is where I disagree, and then that the person that made it, of course, doesn't care what your opinion is, but you're
in that case, the reader is dead.
But you're having. I don't think you can look at it in the same way. I think that you're having a conversation with that person in your own mind, and I think that broadly it's one large conversation because after all, I am not the only, and you are not the only people that are writing reviews or that are putting your ideas down on a in a blog or on a on a board someplace or something like that.
So,
it's
can I ask you a question?
It's one giant conversation among the people that have seen the work. Yeah.
So basically,
what
you're saying.
Hold on, real quick, before you get. This should be really quick. Can I ask you a question, Cap? How often do you watch an entire video response to one of your things, assuming it's actually relevant to what you were talking about in the video? Whether Superhero Rewind recommends, whatever.
To be perfectly honest with you, if it's not a direct response to my video, rarely.
That makes sense. I remember, I do it hit and miss. Like, you and Vince did the one video where you talked about, are there stories that cannot be told on film? And I responded to that with a Geeky Gentleman we did on H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah,
because
sure.
We definitely said that H.P. Lovecraft can never be filmed because so much of it is mental and it's about things you cannot describe. So if you can't describe it, then you cannot represent it on screen well.
Yeah.
So that's a point we brought up, and I was just I fully understand why you might not have watched that because it was close to 2 hours long. But I'm wondering, just in general, do you tend to watch things that are video response to you?
I am
keeping with the conversation tone.
I am absolutely flattered and honored anytime anybody feels the need to actually sit down and make a video responding to something, whether they agree with me or not. And I always feel the need to watch those.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. With the Geeky Gentleman, it's very often retroactive. I'm like, oh, he brought this up.
Oh no, and it's really cool that you leave those. But yes, and I apologize. But to be perfectly honest with you, my schedule is not conducive.
Oh no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. I'm not judging you for that at all. I'm just wondering about that.
I used to watch a lot more reviews than I do now, and to put out the sheer amount of content we post, it's just difficult to now. But
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, the thing is, I'm sure you can watch 5-minute reviews. This is very much you gotta clean the house. Hey, play Geeky Gentleman in the background.
Absolutely, sure.
And that's pretty much whenever I need to clean my room, I wait till GNN comes up with a podcast episode that's not a commentary, and I'm like, okay.
Sorry, we haven't done very many of those lately. The commentaries seem to be kind of overtaken.
And I'll send you a picture of my room, and you can tell my mom why you're responsible.
I think there's something living in there. Why won't you post one of these damn things?
Captain Logan.
I have actually gotten comments from parents before with their kids watching stuff, but I've never gotten that one.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll make sure my mother sends
longer videos so that my kid cleans their room or does their homework. That's awesome.
Oh my god. The Captain Logan, from what you were saying about the comments, so basically from that, do you think comment sections are basically basically think tanks on that particular subjects?
Yeah, on sure they are, and if it's. And if people are being thoughtful and if they're if they're being kind and polite and respectful to people, I think that that can be a very constructive place.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately on YouTube, that's rare.
Well, no, actually, to be fair, watch shows by the Vlog Brothers. I'm always surprised when people don't know who they are. And I'm going to bring up a John Green joke real quick after I finish this. Watch videos by the Vlog Brothers, particularly Crash Course and SciShow. They're attempting to really use the educational format possibilities of YouTube, but do it in a way that's still entertaining, so people that don't have to watch this for a class will actually enjoy watching it, like me. That being said, John Green he was talking about literature, and this was one of the first things that got this topic into my head. He said, I'm not going to get all postmodern and say that the author is dead, mostly because I'm an author and that idea kind of freaks me out, but I will say that interpretation is more powerful than intent.
Yeah, sure.
I love that joke. That was so funny to me. I'm an author, and that kind of freaks me out to say.
Yeah, and hey, Ian, very, very quickly, may I make a comment about what I said about intent? I think a lot of the time when I'm talking about intent, I think I'm referring more often about like tonal intent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I was trying to do this, I was trying to do
not
that.
Not so much, this is what I wanted you to take from it thematically or emotionally. Like, I think it's wonderful when those sorts of things can be done right and well, not done right, but when those sorts of things can be somewhat up to interpretation, where I love movies like Fight Club, because you and I can both watch that and take something different from the ending. But, at the same time, one of the things that's great about, and this is just my opinion, I think Fight Club is a great movie. One of the things that's great about something like Fight Club, in my mind, is that I can tell the kind of movie they wanted to make. So even though what I take from it, or what you take from it, might be different, we can all agree kind of who the audience they intended it for, and like what is entertaining about it, and like it has an identity. What I mean is, it's not all over the map as far as what kind of thing it is. And I think that it's really easy to lose when you're talking about film, especially. It's really easy to lose in integrity of a piece, and to lose your audience, for people to not trust you if they can't tell. All right, Am I supposed to be laughing at the scene? Is it okay if my kids watch this? Those sorts of questions. And if those questions aren't there, and then everybody takes something different from it at the end, I think that's a great movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, and it's a really great point. I had one other thing that I wanted to address, and I don't remember what you just said that made me think of it, but it's definitely something I wanted to bring up. We are all authors here in some extent. I've written several short stories myself. I got a couple of them posted online. Cap's, of course, written his book. There's another question for you. Will you and Vince, since like I always hear you guys talking about I wrote this story, I wrote that story, will you consider posting readings of your stories on Geekvolution? Just maybe. Anyway.
I'll be I'll be a good reader. You know, I'm pretty good. And what's the best?
Yeah, but like you've written some things though, right?
Me?
Like you've written a story at some point or something like that. Like even in a short context, right?
Yeah.
Okay, or you've told a story, and I know Bill has too. Like we've all done that. And there's, we talk about overinterpretation, and I know I do this. Do you ever put things in that you don't directly state that you're hoping to inspire a specific thought in someone's head?
Oh, definitely.
That is like a detail about a character.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
I'm going to use an example for what I did because you can see it on my channel. In my story, The Knife, I have a character that I spend very little amount of time describing physically, and I work off the fact that he's a stereotype. But to give you a deeper level of understanding of him, when the narrator first is talking about him, or at one point when the narrator is talking about him, he's talking about a book report that everyone had to do, and he goes, Kyle had, I think he had, I want to say Frankenstein, but that doesn't seem right. Oh yeah, that's right, he had Dracula. And in doing that, I wasn't just searching, okay, what's something similar to Dracula that I can use. I very intentionally picked Frankenstein because I wanted people to think of, Bill, Frankenstein's monster for Bill.
Thank you, Ian.
I wanted people to think of the popular perception of Frankenstein as just this, as this lumbering, monstrous idiot. Because, of course, the real monster was much more intelligent and stuff, but that's not what the public knows him for.
Yeah.
I wanted people to think of that when they thought of this character, and I felt like I did a pretty good job of doing that because I've had people listen to the story or read the story, and I go, could you describe how you think Kyle's personality is beyond, the characters of Kyle's personality is beyond this story? And people often give me, I think he's kind of an idiot, kind of, just lumbers around a lot. And I think part of that is how I wrote him throughout the story, but very much part of that is what I planted in there to suggest to somebody.
Well,
yeah.
Here's what I would say, having not read the story. I would say that that is an effective description, assuming that people pick up on it, as you said, with the way that he acts and the way you describe him through the rest of the story. The fact that you, and I mean, I don't think a description like that you would have to worry about too much because as long as you're writing him right, it might not matter if anybody actually picks up on that detail.
And that's the thing. It's something I put in.
What's good? I'm sorry. Let me say this real quick. What's good about it is. Yeah. I'm assuming the way you've described it, and at no point did you feel the need to say this guy was a lumbering idiot. You want to put the details that evoke that without coming right out and saying it, and that's something that you always want to be really careful of too when you're talking about like how a character is feeling, rather than saying she was very sad. You show how she was sad. You never have to actually come out and say that. It's redundant.
Yeah, and that's very much it. I'm talking more about the subconscious thing. It's not like I put Frankenstein in italics or something like that.
You never want to do that.
Right. Well,
the subconscious suggestions of character.
Yeah, not just character, of theme also, stuff like that. It's something that's really hard to do outside of first person. I'm just wondering, Cap.
Oh, I don't think that's hard at all. I think that description you could very easily use in third person. But if you were to say he was more like, or however you wrote it, I'm not saying it the way you said it, but if you were to say he was more like Frankenstein than he was like Dracula, and you didn't give us enough other descriptors, I don't think anybody could pick up on it. I don't think that is a lone descriptor. I think that it.
I agree with you very much.
It adds a layer.
Yeah, I'm talking more about the the subconscious. Think of this without me saying think of this. You know?
Right. Sure.
It's Inception. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's
I wish I had my own sound effects board.
That's always a concern for me personally, because whenever I write something like, say, I don't know why this jumped to my mind, whenever I write my web series, The Godzilla Gang, and I'm always trying to get across a certain degree of comedy or a degree of characterization with one of the characters in the show, I always get worried that people are going to take it the wrong way. Like, for example, one of the characters in the show was supposed to be perceived as a raging homosexual, and I never wanted people to look at that and go, oh, this guy's homophobic because of the way he acts and he's described. And I'm always very paranoid that, like, they're going to look at that and think I'm homophobic and think that I'm, like, I'm criticizing them with that. And I always, in the back of my mind, I always have to be careful of, like, my word choice and the way certain characters act. And, it's just, I feel like I'm talking in circles now. But yeah, I'm with you guys. It's you get concerned about your word choice because you want your reader or your viewer in this case to think it's a certain thing, but you don't want to hit them over the head with it where like they're saying, okay, I get it, stop hitting me over the head with it.
You want it to be apparent, but you still want it to have a sense of subtlety.
Exactly, and that's always something I'm paranoid with, especially in that case.
Yeah.
One more thing about your web series, The Godzilla Gang, Bill. Have you chosen voice actors yet?
I was going to actually bring this up to you when we stop recording, but I might also say it now. Will you please play King Ghidorah?
I'd love to.
Awesome.
Okay, anyway, Captain, I talked about a specific example where I very much intended to do that, and I think it did pay off. I think even without me trying to, oh, what about this line about Frankenstein? Let me just circle it in red pen for you. I think it paid off well. Have you had that experience where you put something in that you wanted people to pick up on without noticing that they picked up on it?
What do you mean without noticing they picked up on it?
Like, have you put in something that's just supposed to, like, seem like an extra little detail to the story to give the story a little bit more flair or flavor, but it actually is saying something more than something more, like, did you ever put the sky is blue and not just mean that the sky is blue?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's subtext. What's great about subtext is it is by definition another level, which means that if the story is working, if a person doesn't pick up on it, the story is still working.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm curious if you can think of exact examples that you've used.
Oh, wow.
If you're willing to reveal them.
Honestly, I'd have to think about that for a while. I don't know.
Well, let me just say this while Cap's thinking. Is subtext different than what me and Ian were talking about? Because we were meaning, like, Ian wanted people to see that particular version of Frankenstein and use that as a way to compare it to his character. I want people to take the character of Z, who comes off as a raging homosexual, and not think that I'm homophobic, but think that that this is just part of his character and that he's self-aware about it. And I don't know if that's subtext or so much just it's a more hidden descriptor, but it is kind of necessary.
I'm not sure. I think we need the definition of subtext, but I think it's a part of subtext. Let me put it that way. I think subconscious suggestion through seemingly irrelevant detail is a part of subtext.
Yeah, and I think subtext works on both ways. I mean, it works both ways. I think writers embed subtext. Sometimes it's heavy-handed, and sometimes it's not. And I think sometimes it's there unintentionally.
Mm-hmm. And that's very much the whole thing. I mean, like, I can't tell you the number. Like, I did my Joker Blogs review very much in the Rewind style, and I can't tell you the number of times I went, I bet they probably weren't thinking of it this way, but it works on this level.
Yeah, sure.
And that's like, what was the point? With Harley Quinn in that series, they talked about how they wanted to do kind of a striptease reveal for the character and show a little bit more of her each episode, or every time she showed up, you get to see a little bit more of her. And I found it interesting. It was like, I find it telling of the character, and I don't think that this was intended. I find it telling of the character that the other really popular time this device is used in film is in monster movies, making Harley Quinn the monster of the series.
Yes,
I find that to be one of the interesting little details. I'm sure that wasn't the intention, that they didn't think, oh, we'll make her the monster of the series. I think that's one of those. I think it's an interesting thing that I know about film, and that the authors of the Joker blogs are dead. Please don't let the authors of the Joker blogs be dead. I want series 2.
Well, here's the thing with that.
You know what I realized? You know what I've realized? For Bill, it's Godzilla, and for Ian, it's the Joker blogs.
I was thinking the same thing. Every episode Ian mentions the Joker blogs, I mention Godzilla. So Ian, you can't hold that against me anymore.
No, I'm totally going to hold it against you, because guess what? I am a hypocrite.
Finally, he admits it!
Oh, I've always... You just never asked.
That's all it took.
And if he gets to 200 subscribers first, he'll admit it in a dress.
That'll make it all the more sweeter.
No problem at all. I did not even any hesitation.
Well,
I will film that video in a drop of a hat.
I want to see eyeshadows. I want to see eyeshadow and lipstick.
I'm not putting on makeup though. The only time I put on makeup is when I'm playing the Joker.
Well, let me just say this quick before Milan interrupts me again. The thing with using Harley Quinn as the monster in the Joker blogs, I'm with you. I don't think that they intentionally saw that as making her like the monster of this story, whereas the Joker is usually that. I think that's more of just a basic, well-known story detail that a lot of writers use because it simply works more effectively. The slow reveal is always more suspenseful, more impactful than the quick, let's get it on screen as quick as possible reveal. The original Superman is a good example of that. You don't see Superman until very long into the movie.
What if it's about half hour, an hour?
It's 45 minutes maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's forever. Oh, man. Anyway, I find that to be... Like, I said that a lot in the Joker Blogs review. They did a lot of things that they didn't intend to. And I say that a lot with movies. Like, I bet they weren't thinking about this, but I definitely am seeing this in it. And I think that's pretty much the height, for a reviewer, that is the height of the death of the author. Because it's a personal interpretation that you can back up and work, like we were talking about earlier with Cap's point about why he thinks the author's dead. And from a review standpoint, I absolutely agree that, personal interpretation can be cited, and that makes a very strong point. But still, for me personally, the author is dead because every interpretation is valid once their work is out there, in my opinion.
But let me say,
provided that there's some kind of context.
I think that's an excellent...
I read this book and it makes me think of a blue apple. So the whole point of this book was to make me think of a blue apple.
I think that's
Please tell me why.
I think that's a wonderful place to end the video, actually.
Well, let me say this quick just to explain why I'm still going to say no. Because for me, the author can be killed personally. You can kill the author if you have your interpretation and you don't let anything else pollute it. No one else's opinion, not the author's background. I think that you can let the author live on or bring him back to life by watching a commentary, by reading a biography. I think that it's all personal opinion. And I think that's where this interpretation of fiction discussion comes in. It's all about personal opinion. You can either kill the author or he can live on in your mind. It's entirely up to you, our viewers.
Okay, I've said my final thoughts. Bill says his. Milan, do you have any that you'd like to add, or Captain Logan?
The art of comic book making is mostly a collaborative process, and it's usually really hard to pin down which creator is most well known, or which creator's work really impacts the work itself. Is it the writer's skill or the artist's pen? Sometimes they both work together really well, other times they don't, but whatever, they will be forgotten after a month when the next team goes on.
Okay, Cap, any final thoughts on the topic?
I'm just going to reiterate how important I think it is that artists are very careful not to try to explain what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is great to do behind the scenes stuff, to explain how something was put together, and I think there is perhaps a fine line, and I'm not that strict about it, but what I don't like is when an author feels the need to come out and say, how dare you not pick this up in the work, isn't it obvious? And if you hand your work to a group of 30 people and 25 of them didn't see that, the problem is not that they're morons, probably. The problem is that the work was not effective in the way you intended it to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, to wrap up real quick, once again, we're taking Skype ins, and if you enjoyed the format of the show, this, open, GNN is about starting conversations, Geeky Gentleman is about having conversations, very much to me. And, that's the thing, I'm going to say the same thing I said at the end of the comedy video. We barely scratched the surface, in my opinion.
And I don't think we ever could dig into the surface.
Yeah, anyway, that being said, if you like the format of the show and you think you'd like to take part in the conversation, feel free to Skype in when you hear what the next topic is going to be, or, check out the end of every video, the new video we post, and you've got a week, basically, to send in a file with your thoughts on it, 1 to 2 minutes. Sid Part 2 on Skype, or PM me a download link using SendSpace, or just PM me, we'll figure it out. That being said, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we've been doing Geeky Gentleman for 7 months, and pretty much in every episode that Milan's been on, we've just made fun of him and torn apart his soul. And guess what? He's getting us back, because what are we reviewing next week, Milan?
Oh, yes. We are reviewing My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic.
I'm excited at all.
Why?
Why is the revenge against Captain Logan? Stop. Why in the revenge against Captain Logan video do you have to get revenge on us at the end? Anyway.
This is just Milan kicking everyone's ass and taking everyone's name.
Exactly.
Anyway, so next time we'll be back with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic review. I'm not looking forward to it, but until next time, we are you Geeky Gentlemen, and we'll be discussing things.